What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. It is now, well, it's pretty late on Tuesday evening, on what should have been Electric Tuesday, and I'm sorry I didn't manage to get a video out today. Of course, when you see this, it'll probably be Wednesday, but that annoys me that I didn't get a video out today because I love it. I love doing it, and it's kind of part of my motivation is to try and hit one every day. I love doing it, but the idea of trying to challenge myself to do one every day keeps me pushing, keeps me trying to, achieve something to aspire to each day. And I didn't manage it today because there was just so much going on. I went to the dentist. Just stuff. In fact, a huge part of my day today was spent doing this. Anyway, after all of that had happened, I had to jump in a car into London to then jump on a train to then head all the way up to here where I am right now in this beautifully 70s decorated hotel room up in Shropshire, because early tomorrow morning I'm giving a talk at an event for a technology company all about Formula One and about how Formula One innovates. So I'm looking forward to that, and I do enjoy these trips. I do enjoy these talks that I do. It's always, I'm passionate about Formula One, so to talk about it, I could talk about it all day long if people are happy to listen. So it's a dream job for me. It's great. But now it is so late, and I've kind of had a curry. I've had, if I'm honest, I've had a few wines on the train. I've had a couple of beers since I got here. Probably not feeling as sharp as I sometimes am. So I'm definitely ready for bed. So I apologise for not getting an Electric Tuesday video out today, but I will see you in the morning and we will get this one smashed out so you can see it on Wednesday. Morning. Well, morning everybody. Not quite the snow I was expecting this morning, but it is bloody cold. So I'm up about and on my way now to the event that I told you about last night. I'm going to be talking about how F1 teams kind of lead a change, how they innovate through technology but also through processes as well. And then obviously what I'm doing here is talking to an outside organisation about how they might be able to learn from some of the things that Formula One do. So wish me luck. So it went well. It was good. Really cool place, cool building. Iron Bridge is a beautiful place, by the way. Loads of amazing architecture. So it was a great setting, a great crowd, and the whole thing went really well. It was a really nice crossover because they were a technology or an engineering-based company, and so the relevance of Formula One engineering was really kind of obvious. So it went well, and there were some great questions at the end of it. Thank you very much. Okay, so one of the questions that I get asked all the time is who's the best driver in Formula One? And of course it's an impossible one to answer. It's one of the things about Formula One, isn't it, that we don't give the players, the stars, the sportsmen, we don't give them an even playing field to compete on. So how do you know who's the best driver? If you knew nothing about Formula One, if you turned on for the first times, you might be forgiven for switching the TV on last year, looking at Fernando Alonso languishing near the back in most races and assuming he's a bit of a rubbish driver. But it wouldn't be a fair assumption, would it? I always try and answer that question in the only way I can, really, which is to refer to my own experiences. I tell people you can only answer that question when you've worked with those drivers. So, having worked with Fernando Alonso, with Lewis Hamilton, with Kimi Räikkönen, with Mika Häkkinen, I'm able to base my answer on my own personal experiences of working directly with those people. But if you haven't been as lucky as I have, if you've never worked with those people, how on earth do you judge who's the best driver? The truth is, it's impossible. And just for reference, I always say to people, the two best drivers I ever worked with, and I found it at the time impossible to split them, were Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso. But that was a long time ago, and both have matured Particularly, you might even say Lewis, who at that time was in his very first year of Formula One. What I can't do, of course, is include people like Sebastian Vettel, like Ayrton Senna. I've never worked with these people. I don't know what their feedback's like. I don't know how they worked with the team. The bit you get to see on TV and the bit the records book show, just about the results. But being a Formula One driver, being the best Formula One driver, is about a lot more than that. I think it's one of the things that frustrates me a little bit about our sport. It's one of the criticisms that people who don't necessarily love Formula One love to throw at you, isn't it? That it's not about the best drivers, it's about the best cars, the best machines, who's got the most money. They're kind of all fair criticisms. Don't get me wrong, I love the engineering race, the manufacturing race that goes on in Formula One. It's a huge part of the sport. It's kind of why I got involved in it. I've been part of that battle and I love it. I don't want to see it go. I just wish there was a way that we could test one driver fairly and squarely against another, and once and for all see who comes out on top. The reality, of course, is that that's just not easy to achieve. And I know that lots of you will say, well, put them all in the same car. That will be an interesting experiment, but to get everybody in the same car on the same day, in the same conditions, and all of that kind of thing, first of all, is almost impossible in modern Formula One, because every driver's tied into a huge contract with brands and with manufacturers, so they're never going to release their driver to go and race in another car that's not made by the manufacturer that they're linked to, or not representing the brand that they're being paid millions to represent. So on a commercial level, it's highly difficult, highly unlikely it's ever going to happen. But even if you were to get them all in the same car on the same day and get them to do a shootout, it's not really a true representation of who's the best driver. It might tell you who's the best driver on that particular day in that particular car, who's suited best to those conditions or to that particular car or the tyres that it's on. What tells you who the best driver is a much more in-depth study. When I talk about working with drivers, I talk about understanding what they're like to work with, what their intellect level is like, what they are like in terms of feedback, how they help develop the car, how they help change the development direction. There's so much that goes into being a Formula One driver in the current era that it's impossible just to line them up for a shootout and say you're the best. It would be great to see, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see it. Perhaps as a support race, get some kind of nondescript, single-seater championship, all of them the same, line them all up, get everybody in it, and say off you go. It's a bit of a dream, isn't it? A fantasy. It's not going to happen. But the thing that frustrates me is that if you compare our sport to other sports, popular sports, football, rugby, those kind of things, the equivalent to what we do in F1 by giving some drivers better equipment, better tools to do the job, the equivalent for me is like saying you're going to give one football team a bigger goal to shoot at. It's like saying you're going to give a basketball team a bigger hoop to shoot into. You're making it unfair. You're giving one team or one driver, one participant, a massive advantage over another. And I know you can say, well, that's justified because they've earned the right to be in the best cars. The best drivers always find their way to the top. And that is true. But if we're trying to put on an entertainment spectacle, and ultimately, of course, that is what Formula One is supposed to be, is it entertaining to see a very few drivers, and I mean one or two drivers, who we know will come out on top, who we know will win the Grand Prix as long as their car holds together? Is that entertainment? And if it isn't good enough entertainment, what do we do about it? I don't know, we keep coming back to this. What do we do about Formula One? I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Formula One. I don't think we actually need to change very much. I love it as it is. I'm not on here constantly bleating, trying to say that we need to do things to repair our sport. I don't think it's broken. I think there are a few things that we can keep refining. As with anything, you can always be looking for improvements. But in answer to the question, who's the best Formula One driver, I just don't think there's an answer. And I hate to leave these videos with no real solution. I hate to bring up a problem and not really suggest a solution to it, but I don't think I've got one. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Let me know. Pop a comment below. Let me know what you would do. How would you Decide, who do you think who is the best driver? And if you're not sure, how could you come to that conclusion? Is there a means whereby we could test them all against each other and come up with a definitive number one? Let me know. Anyway, I'm back in London now, heading home. I can't wait. I hope I'll be able to get this video to you this evening, Wednesday evening, and then I hope I'll be able to see you again tomorrow. Ta-da.